whatever sin you may commit, but will never ever commit or forgive a person who commits themselves or dies upon shirk towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In two separate occasions, inside Surah Al-Nisa. Then we find inside Surah Al-Ma'idah the most concrete ayah inside the Quran. Because some people try to say this da'wah is da'watul Wahhabiyya or Najdiyya or A'lan or Fulan. That's what some people begin to say. This da'wah is the da'wah of the Quran. The Quran says, إِنَّهُ مَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةِ وَمَأْوَاهُ النَّارِ وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ أَنصَارٍ. Clear cut inside Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, not a shaykh is saying, or not a person is saying, they've only extracted it from the Quran. The Quran is saying, إِنَّهُ مَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ. Indeed, whoever commits shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَقَدْ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةِ. Haram ala hada shakhs. It's haram for that person to ever go into paradise. Simple. Challenge the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not that we're saying anybody's a mushrik, anybody's a disbeliever. We're just highlighting how dangerous. So that is the first ultimate sin. Then straight after that we find shirku billah was sihr. Straight after shirk we find is to delve into black magic, into magic. Straight after shirk billah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just to complete the hadith we find وَقَتْلُ النَّفْسِ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. To kill an innocent soul without any justified reason is min al-kaba'ir. That's Imam Dhahab in his famous Risala, his famous book called Al-Kaba'ir, collects some 80 or 90 of the major sins from the Quran and Sunnah. He mentioned that Kaba'ir or Kabira is extracted if there's adabun shadid or alim, or chastisement or punishment or torture is mentioned in this dunya inside the akhirah, or some type of had law has to be implemented, is classified as abominable sin. Then we find to kill an innocent individual, wa aklu riba, the eating, the devouring of riba. Many Muslims today as well don't think much of it. Islamic mortgage, halal mortgage. There is no halal mortgage. A mortgage is a mortgage. Call it halal, call it haram, call it whatever you want to call it. A mortgage, if the name mortgage is used, the principles of a mortgage, it is haram. Wa aklu riba min al-kaba'ir. It's from amongst the major sins. And that's, as a side point we find inside the Quran, many sins are mentioned, but only one sin inside the Quran is mentioned. That whoever begins to delve into the use of riba, then that person, war has been declared upon that person by Allah and His Messenger. No other sin in the Quran do you find does it mention that war has been declared. Go and read the tafsir of this ayah inside Surah Al-Baqarah. What ulama mentioned, Ibn Abbas has mentioned, he said to that individual, take your weapons and go and fight with Allah. And only a mad individual will think like that. That's when we sometimes, I don't want to sound too political, we're talking about the current climate of the Muslim world at the moment. We're at war, not with Americans, with Americans, or the Jews, or the United Nations, or whatever it may be around us. We're at war as Muslims against Allah. And that's a losing battle. Those wars are tertiary wars. Those wars, they will come and go if they do exist. But the real war is what? We've declared war upon ourselves via entering into the world of riba, the world of interest, which many people try to justify, to legalize, and the whole of the empire is based upon this haram action. وَأَكْلُ مَالِ الْيَتِيمِ, to eat, devour the wealth of an orphan child, to plunder their wealth, take their property, to squander it, to use it upon your own self, is classified min al-kaba'ir. وَالتَّوَلِّي يَوْمَ الزَّحْفِ, to turn your back on the day of meeting the enemy. Min al-kaba'ir, unless you regroup or come back once again. That is a sign of a person entering into kaba'ir. If you meet the enemy, don't turn your back. لَا تَتَمَنَّوْا لِقَاءَ عَدُوِّكُمْ, never ever aspire to meet the enemy. Never ever in your life. That's sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. So never ever aspire to do that. But if you do, فَثْبُتُوا, remain steadfast if you have to meet the enemy. So that's kaba'ir, at-tawalli yawm al-zahf, to turn away, to leave your brethren, to leave the Muslims, to turn away and run away, feeling scared or becoming a coward, etc. وَقَذْفِ الْمُحْسَنَاتِ الْغَافِلَاتِ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, to blame innocent women, to blame them for committing immorality or having illicit relationship, and they're pure women. Sometimes people may tarnish a woman's character or say something about a woman, and that would spread like wildfire. That her respect, her dignity is taken away, that possibly nobody wants to marry her, no one wants to speak well of her. This is classified as amongst al-kaba'ir. As for returning back to the main theme of the hadith, why has a sihr, magic, been mentioned straight after shirk billah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why has it been mentioned inside this tartib? The different ulama have extracted various things, but two main points begin to take place. One is the only way to enter into the world of magic is via the use of the shayateen, is via the use of the devils. So the only way to come into the real world of magic is to come through kufr, the opposite of iman. So everything has opposites. There's iman, there's kufr. So that's straight after a shirk that you find the best way to commit shirk, or the best way to enter into the world of magic is to devote yourself towards the devil. Likewise we find is you're trying to claim knowledge of the unseen, the knowledge of the ghaib. That's what magic and sorcery is, trying to find out, because as they say, curiosity killed the cat. Many people who come to the reading of their palms and looking at teacups or whatever it may be, is trying to find out, how can I have a better life? Many Muslims, curiosity is what destroys them. How they can protect themselves, how they can remain alive, or how they can keep their wealth, whatever it may be. So all of these attributes classified magic as to be something very, very dangerous. That's the Quran mentions, يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْجِبْتِ وَالطَّاغُوتِ. So Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter, verse number 51. These people, they believe in al-jibt wa taghut. If you go back to ulama tafasir like Imam Ibn Kathir, you find various explanations being given. قال عمر الجبت يعني السحر. بمعنى الجبت بمعنى is sihr, is magic. وقيل الطاغوت هو الشيطان. طاغوت is يعني الشيطان. وقد قيل أن الجبت بمعنى الكاهن. الجبت is a soothsayer. And الطاغوت هو الساحر, is the magician. Another explanation that we find, الجبت بمعنى الساحر بلسان الحبشة. So الجبت, in accordance to the Abyssinian language, is what a magician is known as. As a طاغوت هو الكاهن, a soothsayer, person who predicts the future. So this is how the Quran describes these individuals. That's in the Sunan of Imam Tirmidhi that we find, إن حد الساحر قتله. The punishment of a magician is he needs to be executed. وَلَوْ تَابَ. Some ulama, they mention, even if he repents, we still kill him. We still execute him. Why do we still execute a person who's a magician or sorcerer? Because all of his life, he's been living a life of deception. So you can never tell, is he speaking the truth or is he lying? So he has to be punished. A large portion ago, he has to be punished. He has to be executed. That is his punishment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge this individual because we can't trust him. Because the magician continuously, he changes what he's trying to display towards the people. If we go back to that verse inside Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter, verse number 51, you find in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, كتب عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه أن يقتلوا كل ساحر وساحرة قال فقتلنا 3 سواحر. Umar, he wrote to the people that to kill every male or female magician that you find. And the narrator mentions that we killed 3 magicians. If you read the tafsir this ayah, Surah An-Nisa, Surah number 4, verse number 51, in the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, if I'm not mistaken, you'll find it there, inshallah. Likewise, his daughter Hafsa, she got a magician who performed magic upon her to be executed, that he should be punished, or etc. So what is, before these people make the attacks upon the Islamic law that we're trying to execute magicians and people involved in sorcery, etc., that's not our aim. We're just trying to highlight what the Islamic law mentions. Because even according to them, if you go back to Christian sources, you go back to Judaism, you find some harsh words are mentioned about these individuals who practice magic, what's known as witch hunting and witch trials. They had certain tests that they went through, and they began to kill certain individuals or execute them. Officially, according to Judaism and Christianity, you find to characterize magic as something which characterizes magic as something forbidden, and witchcraft as something which has been where it began to prosecute practitioners of it according to various degrees of severity. So magic is only possible by the use of the shaitan and the agents of the shaitan. The use of the jinn is the only way that a person can really enter into the world of sorcery or black magic. What is the beginning of magic? Ulama mention that sahara, in the word sihr, goes back to something which is khufyatan, something which is done in secrecy. It's not done in the open, or it's done in the early hours of the morning in a state of darkness. So it's done that visibly, you cannot visualize magic. You cannot visualize it with your eyes. It's done in total seclusion, in darkness, or whatever it may be. It's hidden from the normal naked eye. is the intent of magic, and it creates the meaning that some of them mention of being deceptive towards people around you. هو ما يفعل الساحر من الحيل والتخيلات. So this is what the magician does by the use of magic and false pretense. So there's various types of magic. So we're going to mention that which is just tricks and sorcery and play of the hand and tricks that you find. And then there's the deeper magic of whereby a person has to make an allegiance with the jinn, with the devil, has to worship the devil and do all types of atrocities to get close to the devil. And the devil, the jinn, they don't need us human beings. The jinn that you find wants us to come to a lowly level. Thus, if you study the world of magicians, they have to do all types of evil practices to gain the strength or the help of the jinn. The jinn don't need our help, but they just want to see how low we will go as human beings. Thus, the jinn will tell these magicians, tell them to, obviously I'm only expressing this because this is what's been documented, what they've done themselves. To possibly urinate in the Quran, write the Quran with menstrual blood, to sit in weird positions, to curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, curse the magician, to slaughter the name of the jinn, all types of filth and corruption. Will tell them to do that, then eventually the jinn will begin to say, I will do what you want me to do. The jinn does not control the human being. The human being does not control the jinn. It's just a perception that the human being thinks that I've now gained dominance and control over the jinn via these filthy practices and actions that is people that they carry out. Other ulama mentioned that magic has been derived from magus, which is old Persian language of the Zoroastrians, the fire worshippers that we find of worshipping a famous astrologer amongst the priests whose name was Magus. From his name we find the beginning of magic. Others say that magic entered the English language approximately in the 14th century via the French word magique, and they entered into the current practice that we find in the world of magic. Others have mentioned that magic is related to the word al-majus, the Magians, the fire worshippers, which has only been mentioned once inside the Quran, inside Surah Al-Hajj, the 22nd chapter, Quran verse number 17. And the derivatives of al-majus, or the essence of them, is mentioned by Imam Shawkani inside his tafsir, in Fath al-Qadir. In there he mentions that who are al-majus. Various aqwal have been mentioned by the ulama tafsir, which he collects. He says, هُمُ الَّذِينَ يَعْبُدُونَ النَّارِ. They are those individuals who worship the fire. يَقُولُونَ لِلْعَالَمِ أَصْلَيْنَ النُّورِ وَالظَّلَمَ. They are the individuals who believe that the world has two essences, light and darkness. They mention وَقِيلَ هُمْ قَوْمْ يَعْبُدُونَ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرِ. They are people who worship the sun and the moon. وَقِيلَ هُمْ قَوْمْ يَسْتَعْمَلُونَ النَّجَاسَاتِ. They said they are people who use filthy objects and filthy substances. Likewise, وَقِيلَ هُمْ قَوْمْ مِنَ النَّصَارَى. They are a group of the Christians who retracted themselves from Christianity, began to live a life of tasawwuf and a mystical approach. وَقِيلَ إِنَّهُمْ أَخَذُوا بَعْدَ الدِّينَ الْيَهُودِ وَبَعْدَ الدِّينَ النَّصَارَى. They said they are people who took some aspects of Judaism and some aspects of Christianity and put it all together. If you put all these statements together, you find what? The beginning of magic. Put all of this together, what I like to use the word mumbo jumbo, put it all together and you find magic begins to take place. Magic and sorcery. Sorcery goes back to the Latin word source, which carries the meaning of one's fate, one who influences fate or destiny. So the sorcerer is trying to change your destiny. He's trying to change your fate. Goes back to the Latin word source, changing one's destiny. That's what these people are claiming to do, is we are able to change your destiny. That which has been decreed for you, we'll change it and turn it into something else. Other individuals, they begin to highlight that the essence of magic returns back to two prophets, Sulaiman and Musa alayhi salam. That's what these people begin to write. That's what the Jews, they write extensively about Sulaiman and Musa alayhi salam. What is the essence of these individuals? Some of them you find, إِنَّمَا كَانَ سَاحِرًا يَرْكَبُ الرِّيحِ. Sulaiman, they mention, indeed he was a magician. He used to fly upon the wind. And obviously we know according to the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him certain blessings, that the wind would travel for a certain distance for a month, etc. The jinn used to work for him. He was given mantiq al-tayr, he was given the ability to speak to the animals. So all of these miraculous skills that were given to Sulaiman alayhi salam, they began to then mention on top of that, he wasn't really a prophet, he was really a magician. Thus some of the al-Yahud, وَقَالَ بَعْضَ أَحْبَارُ الْيَهُود, some of the leaders of the Jews began to say, أَلَا تَعْجَبُونَ لِمُحَمَّدٍ. Why are you startling at Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, marveling at what he's saying? يَزْعَمْ أَنَّ ابْنَ دَاوُودَ كَانَ نَبِيًّا. He's saying that Sulaiman alayhi salam, the son of Dawood, is a prophet. وَاللَّهِ مَا كَانَ إِلَّا سَاحِرًا. So they write in their books, he wasn't a prophet, he was a magician, he was a sorcerer, is what they attribute to Sulaiman alayhi salam. That's why even you go and you study what's known as Kabbalah, that you find the Jewish practice of magic, etc. They take it all back to Jewish traditions. The essence of magic goes back to Sulaiman alayhi salam. Likewise, you read many of the Israelite traditions. If you look at Imam Suyuti's Tafsir Durrul Manthur, he mentions many Israeliyat about Sulaiman alayhi salam, certain ayat being placed inside the Quran. And Sulaiman alayhi salam, he had a ring, and he would seal any letter he wrote with this ring. And so when he entered into Baytul Khala, into the lavatory, into the bathroom, he removed the ring and he left the ring with his slave girl. And as he was inside the lavatory, these are all Israelite traditions that we don't believe in, but just to highlight the emphasis of how what they begin to portray about Sulaiman alayhi salam. And so the jinn came, or the devil came, took on the disguise of Sulaiman alayhi salam and asked for the ring. And took the ring from the slave girl and went away and began to take the letters, the writing of Sulaiman, and between each line began to place kufr, etc. inside there. So Sulaiman alayhi salam, he came out, he asked for his ring. The girl said, "You've already taken the ring." And that's when Sulaiman alayhi salam discovered that the jinn has taken his ring. Likewise, they mentioned that underneath his throne is where he kept his material. And thus when he passed away, they broke open his throne, underneath his throne, took out the letters, whatever was written there, and began to place sorcery and magic in between every single line. This is some of the attributes that's been written in Israeliyat, and we all know this is all false, to attribute this to Sulaiman alayhi salam. So thus you find the Quran mentions, وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. Narrate to the people about what these people are saying about Sulaiman alayhi salam, or that which has been, the shayateen begin to mention about Sulaiman alayhi salam. وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. Sulaiman alayhi salam never committed any disbelief. So according to this ayah, the first thing that we learn, that Sulaiman alayhi salam never committed disbelief, never involved in sorcery, never involved in magic. وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. Indeed, the devils have disbelieved. They are the ones that began to teach people sorcery and magic. So to attribute magic to Sulaiman alayhi salam is kufr. Is disbelief, is unacceptable. As the Quran is praising Sulaiman alayhi salam here. وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلَ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ. And that which has been sent down upon Harut and Marut. Imam Qurtubi goes to the view that وَمَا أُنزِلَ, وَمَا نَاءٌ نَافِيَةٌ, ma of negation, that nothing was sent down upon Harut wa Marut. That's the view that Imam Qurtubi goes to. Even that's not the meaning here, as other ulama tafasir have mentioned, that there were certain things that came down to Harut and Marut. Who was Harut and Marut that we find? Some ulama mentioned they were Jibreel and Mikael alayhi salam, but that is false. Others said they were just two angels, because the angels posed a certain question when they saw how human beings were behaving, how we follow a life of lust and desires. So the angel said, how strange. Just like we find at the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, whereby you find the whole discussion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to highlight about Adam alayhi salam. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the angels, indeed I'm going to create a viceroy who is going to come upon the earth. And the angels began to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are you going to create a creation when we are praising you, we're remembering you? A creation is going to come and do what? Spill blood and create fitna upon the earth. How did the angels make such a statement? Because if you look at the essence of the human being, from yesterday to today, the essence of the human being is to do what? Is to spill blood. وَفَسَادٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And to cause corruption upon the land. So ulama tafasir have mentioned that either the angels visualized the role of the jinn, the corruption that they began to create upon this earth, or they had some insight that the human being is going to do likewise. So they posed the question, Wallahu alam about the authenticity about this, they posed the question, why are the human beings doing such actions? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that if you was placed as human beings, being removed as angels in the angelic form and became human beings with shahawat, with desires, you would do likewise. So it's mentioned that select two of your best angels, Harut and Marut, and send them down to the earth in the form of what? As any human beings. Just what's this? I can't remember reading about some movie, Mikael coming down upon the earth, whatever this corruption, everything about them is just a movie world, isn't it? The angels come down. So they're similar to this. They may have taken this from Israelite traditions, that the angels come down upon the earth. So Harut and Marut, they came upon the earth as human beings. They fell into the temptations that human beings fall into. They're drinking alcohol, committing adultery, etc. And thus you find that human beings, as a side point, if we begin to practice and become good Muslims, we become far greater than the angels. Because while we have the intellect and the rationale to make that choice and to show servitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because angels, لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. The angels never ever disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's according to this verse inside Surah Al-Tahrim, that this story about Harut and Marut being two angels coming down this form, ulama have rejected this. But we're only trying to highlight the understanding what took place. And then they began to highlight where the places, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. We're only a fitna, we're a trial, we're a test sent down. Do not commit disbelief. Ibn Abbas mentions that they did not tell people or teach people magic. They only highlighted this is where people go and practice magic. But stay away from it. Don't go there and learn magic. But as we mentioned, curiosity killed the cat. Most of us, you tell people to stay away from something, what do they go and do? They always go and do it. So always use reverse psychology. Go the opposite and they'll go the opposite. If you tell a person don't do this, don't tell your child don't do this, they'll definitely do that. Tell them to do the opposite and inshallah they'll do the opposite, and that will be. So same thing with people involved in magic. Don't say to them don't do magic, say to them do magic. And inshallah they won't do the magic. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So they warn the people, don't go into the world of magic. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. The main essence of this magic is to separate a man from his wife. So if you look at most of the problems inside our society, the black magic, the voodoo, or whatever maybe is being done, is to separate a man from his wife. Especially in our subcontinent culture, you never got married to your auntie's son, or your brother's daughter, or whatever it may be. Woof, next minute you know you're under a spell. Isn't it? It exists, isn't it? That's what happens in our society. That's the reality. That all of a sudden people's marriages are breaking up, or something's taking place inside the community. Because why? Of this jealous and this hatred that begins to take place. And the only way to confront that person is never to confront them, is to go behind the scenes and to create or to harm that individual by this format. So إِنَّ لِلسِّحْرِ تَأْثِيرًا. Magic has an effect فِي الْقُلُوبِ, upon the hearts, in terms of love, wal-bughd, hatred, wal-furqa, to create division, wal-qurb, wal-bu'd, to bring people close and to take people far away. There's people who have manuals. You want to love someone, here you go, I'll do this potion, this spell for you, so-and-so will get to love you. It's a reality. There's books out there. I won't tell you where to purchase these books from. So we find that this is the shaitan. إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانِ يَضَعَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. The shaitan places his throne upon the water. And the soldiers, they come back and they report to him, I've done this, I've done that. He said, you haven't done anything, you haven't done anything. Till one of them comes back and says, and this shows the importance of creating any problems inside the home. Comes and says that I made this man divorce his wife. So this one, he said, pats him in his back, that you are my comrade, you're my good friend. Even the hadith, there's some da'af inside the hadith, the most disliked actions, which is perfectly halal to do, is divorce. Some ulama made a critique of the hadith, but just to highlight, there's something which is halal, but something which is not encouraged. So the shaitan, the best thing that a person can do is to separate a man from his wife. It's not just separating a man from his wife, it's separating you from your children. It's separating you from society. It breaks up this Muslim ummah. Doesn't mean that divorce is not allowed in circumstances, quite clear. But many times we find for trivial reasons, for trivial affairs, that people, their tarbiyah and their life hasn't been rectified, begin to just walk out of their lives, of their family, out of their children, whatever it may be. And at times it could be the influence the shaitan, or the influence of the devil. Also we find وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. No harm can fall upon the individual except for by the leave and the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the essence of a Muslim. Whatever these individuals they do inside their life, the person's strong faith and conviction is never worried about these individuals. When people say to us, don't open a ta'weez, you'll be burnt alive. Don't they say that? Bring me the ta'weez, I'll open it up for you. Let's see if I'm burnt alive. But this is something that they create in the figment, in the mind of our individuals. Don't you dare touch it. You'll be burnt alive. You won't live. That's the reality. But as we say, you don't want to open it, bring it to us. We'll open it for you and see what happens to us. These people are learning something that doesn't benefit them and doesn't harm them. So magic is a science that doesn't really benefit and it doesn't really harm. It's just a great big illusion that's been created that people begin to think that there's some benefit or there's some harm inside this action. مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ شَيْئًا مِنَ السِّحْرِ Whoever learns any element of magic, قَلِيلًا أو كثيرا, whether it be a small amount or a large amount, كَانَ آخر أهديه من الله سبحانه وتعالى. That is a final straw, the final link, the final covenant between you and Allah. That you have now gone into the path of following the path of a disbeliever. There is no good magic and bad magic. There's no white magic and black magic. All magic is kufr. So people say that we're counteracting black magic via white magic. So a person comes to you and says, look, we'll attack them via the use of this magic, we'll do this, we'll do that. They're both kuffar. They're both disbelievers. That's what they are, according to Sharia. And likewise they portray Harry Potter, etc., white magic, Lord, we shouldn't use the word Lord, should have Voldemort and whatever it may be, and we have to take whatever it may be out. We're the good magicians. There's no good magicians. It's all kufr. White magic and black magic is all classified as kufr. So they say white magic is a mild magic, a benign form of magic to help people. And black magic is the wicked magic. Even that terminology is racist, isn't it? فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So only harm themselves inside this world and the next, irrespective of what they earn. So the Quran mentions, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. These people know that they will have no nasib, and no share of the hereafter will be given to these individuals who practice this practice of magic. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. And indeed, evil or wretched it is what these people are trying to purchase, sell upon this earth. So that's these people are selling their souls, selling their faith for a small bowl of rice, thinking it's going to benefit them inside this dunya and inside the akhirah. وَلَا يُفْلِحُ السَّاحِرُ حَيْثُ أَتَى. The magician will never be successful whichever angle he comes from. Magician will never be successful, not in this world and not inside the akhirah, is a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other individual that they hide behind is Musa alayhi salam. إِنَّ هَذَا لَسَاحِرٌ عَلِيمٌ. Indeed, this is a knowledgeable magician. So they try to look at the context of the story of Musa alayhi salam, because sorcery was rampant, magic was rampant. They try to use the evidence. Fir'aun says that he's just a magician. So he only came with that which was to counteract the people. Every messenger comes with a miracle to counteract whatever the people are involved in. So he came with the signs to show to his people and to prove to them that which they believe in is something which is false. So that's the ulama mentioned there's two types of magic. That which is known as illusionary magic, and that which is the clear falling into the concept of kufr, of disbelief. And some have gone to debate about genuine magic and illusionary magic, but at the end of the day both are kufr. Whether it's illusionary magic that you find or the pure genuine magic, both are classified as a form of disbelief that the person needs to stay away from it. So sometimes you find a mixture of genuine and illusionary magic. People walking on fire, people walking on water, whatever it may be. So it could be illusionary magic and pure genuine magic as well. Turning a rock into an animal, cutting a body into half, and then going through it or walking into the fire. That's what Jundub, Ibn Ka'ab and the companions, when a person was doing this type of magic acts or whatever it may be, cutting a body in half and bringing it back together. And if you study it carefully, there's certain elements of putting certain things that exist there. So what did he do? He got the magician and he cut him in half and said, bring yourself back together again. So you're busy putting everybody else back together, put yourself back together firstly. Thus you find تُخَيِّلُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ سِحْرِهِمْ أَنَّهَا تَسْعَى. It made perceive to them. So when the people visualized, it was perceived to them that the strings, the sticks are moving. So the magicians have done some magic over their eyes. Just like today you have camera tricks or whatever it may be that makes it look like something is taking place. Something that they've done at the time of Musa alayhi salam. سَحَوْا أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ وَاسْتَرْهَبُوهُمْ. They covered the eyes of the people around them, and they did what? They frightened them. So if you go back to the world of magicians, whether it be people like Houdini, who died in 1926, you find all these tricks that you used to do come out. Some of it could be the use that some people say you're able to dislocate your shoulder and able to take your arm out and unlock yourself. You may have had, little small whatever keys to open the padlocks, whatever it may be. It could be the use of the jinn to help him take out of this. Who else do we find? David Blaine being buried alive. What else? Drowned alive, frozen in time, whatever it may be. Or likewise, how David Copperfield making the Statue of Liberty disappear, being sawn in half. Aleister Crowley developed the Freemason movement. You go back and you read about the Freemasons. It's all based upon a cult movement, the worship of the devil, and doing certain actions that certain people are involved inside. If you go and study all this in detail, some of it's illusionary, some of it may be entering into the world of the jinn, to get the jinn to create certain or help that person to do certain actions. Then you find that which is known as genuine magic. Genuine magic is the use of spells or whatever it may be, and saying certain words. That a person will begin to blow upon knots and blow upon certain things. At any stage you begin to see the person murmuring certain phrases you can't understand the language, and the person should be wary of what this person is uttering. That's why many people, when they go to someone to get ruqya, a shar'i, the recitation of the Quran upon anybody who's possessed, sometimes people go to the wrong people. And as soon as a person begins to recite something you don't understand, most of us, alhamdulillah, can understand the Quran. As long as you can understand that the person is reading the Quran, irrespective of what ayat they are. There are certain ayat which are a lot more powerful than other ayat, and this only comes via experience. There is no clear-cut sunnah that a person needs to read certain ayat to expel the jinn or to remove magic. But what we know, the impact of Surah Al-Fatiha is classified as a cure, will help the individual. Ayat Al-Kursi, verse 255 of Surah Al-Baqarah, the end, last two ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah that we find, Surah Al-Jinn as well. Likewise, find other ayat inside Surah Al-Qasas that we mentioned by the ulama. Likewise, other ayat that have been documented and help the individual. So Al-Mu'awwidhatayn, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, Surah Al-Ikhlas, are all ways of removing the jinn or removing any black magic. If by any means this person begins to recite something you don't understand or say certain words, then you should no longer visit such people. These people are not authentic individuals. Anything that a person does is crystal clear. If the person says to you, tell me your mother's name, tell me your date of birth, bring me your shirt, this person is a magician. A real person who does ruqya does not need to know your name, does not need to know your date of birth, does not need to have your shirt, doesn't need anything. This is all a fallacy that's been created, that by knowing the name of your mother, knowing your date of birth, knowing this, that we're now able to enter into world of the jinn. A real raqi, a real person reading the Quran, doesn't need to know your name. Will just read the Quran. So at any stage you find, or the people begin to find these cards, these leaflets, people say to you, bring me a crocodile's head. Where am I going to get a crocodile's head from here, in this country? Okay, give us £400, we'll bring one from Uganda for you. Where does that £400 go? Why do you need a crocodile's head for? Well, to discover if magic or whatever has been done upon you. Or someone sitting in a different location, send us, as I mentioned, his shirt, or send this to us, we'll find out. All these individuals are using the jinn. And control of the jinn is haram. Even if the jinn happens to be a good jinn, it's forbidden inside the Sharia, based upon what's been given to the Prophet Muhammad that Sulaiman alayhi salam was the only individual given control of the jinn. And when the jinn came to harm the Prophet Muhammad, he wanted to tie up the jinn to the pillar of the masjid so the children could come and play with him, etc. But he said, I remembered the dua of Sulaiman alayhi salam, so I released him. So ulama have given different, either it means that the Prophet Muhammad could have tied up the jinn, had the power, but out of humbleness, modesty, released him. Or remembering the dua of Sulaiman alayhi salam, that he cannot have control of the jinn and released him. Anyhow, whatever the view is, the Prophet Muhammad released the jinn. So if there was any other individual who have control of the jinn, would have been the Prophet Muhammad. So no Muslim or people believe that the jinn is with me and it helps me out. So I can come and help other individuals, whether they're pious clerics, whatever they are. It is haram for a Muslim to have control of the jinn. Even if they're using that jinn to remove black magic or to remove harm. two wrongs don't make a right, according to the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So likewise, you find that these people will likewise, certain elements of your body, you should be careful. Cutting one's hair, cutting one's nails, your clothing. These are all elements that people involved in magic can use this to perform magic upon you. So a person should be vigilant about, doesn't mean if you go to the barbers, start getting worried, but if somebody's coming to your home to cut your hair, etc. But in a general place, no mafi haraj. But the person should be vigilant. The person is going to take your hair, take your nails, or somebody saying to you, let me cut your hair, or give me your hair, whatever it may be, or give me your shirt. These things can be actually used to perform magic upon the person by the leave, the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, you find the use of strange medicines, animals, as I mentioned, smoke, that you find all of this to discover, and that's why you find these people looking into cups after drinking a cup of tea to see what exists there. Reading on one's palm, one's hands. The hands don't mean anything. These lines don't mean anything. Astrology that you find is looking at the stars. The stars have only been placed there. That we find the world of astronomy was placed there for a benefit that Sharia mentions. There's three purposes. According to tafsir, the ayat of the Quran, going back to Imam Mujahid, وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحِ. Indeed, we've covered the lower earth with the lamps. That's the first reason for the stars being inside the sky. And second, we find رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ, as meteorites to be thrown upon the devils. And likewise, Surah Al-Nahl, وَبِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ, and by the stars you are guided. Today, people who know about the movement of the stars, they know which direction to travel in. That's all. Other than that, the stars don't benefit us. Reading of horoscopes, Sagittarius, Virgo, Capricorn, whatever it may be. Muslims pick up the newspaper straight away, read what's going to happen to me, what good luck, what bad luck is going to fall upon me. And that is nothing but hocus pocus, the whole theme of this. Likewise, find medics. These people taking on the roles of becoming doctors or healers, that they come, you find these cards left out on our cars, everything written there. Are you suffering from this? Are you suffering from that? You want this, you want that, you want this, we'll bring it back to you. Dr. Voodoo, Zulu, whatever it may be, will do all your jobs for you. It's all there, isn't it? What is all of this? And how many people they fall into this? Because remember, in a state of spiritual sickness, you want the quick cure. And especially in our culture, people will flock to an individual who's removed the jinn. They'll say, you know what, mashallah, he took out the jinn. And most times, they take out the jinn, or the jinn leaves via committing shirk. Real removal of the jinn, etc., just like medication. You have to continuously take doses of weakening the jinn till eventually it leaves. It's a prescription. Anybody who says instantly the jinn will be removed should be wary of that as well. Because these individuals that you find, they're tricking the individuals. The jinn will enter into the body of the individual. And the jinn will say to the person, sacrifice at such and such a grave on such and such person's name, and I will leave the body. So when our people, they come to these saints, the saint will say, I'll remove the jinn. But there's one thing you have to go and do. Go to so-and-so's dead grave and sacrifice outside that grave. That is pure shirk. The jinn will leave the body of that person and stand there and laugh, and you've committed what? You've committed shirk. That person becomes famous in our community. He's a person who does what? Who removes the jinn. إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. This is a fitna. Life is a fitna. Life is a test. That's the Quran mentions. Alif Lam Mim حَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think we're going to say that you believe and you never be tested? This is a test of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see who is going to remain patient. Who's going to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Most of our people, unfortunately, don't turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They turn to the graves, they turn to the shrines, they turn to threads, they turn to ta'weed, the amulets. Even the scholars have discussed, the only ta'weed, if it is allowed, even though this is a view that most of us we don't take, if it contains purely the Quran. That's a minute view. If it contains purely the Quran, some of them have allowed you to wear it. But you find man wukila alayhi faqad ashraka. Whoever places their trust on that action amulet has committed what? Committed shirk. So some people wear this ta'weed and thinking it contains the Quran, but 99% of the time it's not the Quran. Open it up. squiggly lines, mumbo jumbo, this and the other place there, name Allah Ar-Rahman, and that's it. The rest is all confusion. Doesn't contain the Quran. And most people wear it and they say it protects me from evil. Friday night tonight, Saturday night, how many of them are in the club? You see them, Sheikh, I'm wearing my ta'weez, protects me from doing any haram. Done every single haram under the moon. My mum gave it to me, I won't fall into any bad luck, anything wrong won't happen to me. And the day you're not wearing it, got picked up by 5-0, no wonder. I didn't have Ayatul Kursi in my pocket today. No wonder I crashed the car. That's what we become, superstitious individuals, hanging threads on our car like Sikhs and Hindus, back of our cars, protects me from the evil eye, from black magic. That's what we become. Our faith isn't based upon threads. That's not the faith of a Muslim, it's threads. Or this bad luck. Or a black cat came in front of me, I walked under the ladder, I opened an umbrella inside the house, I spilled salt, the mirror cracked, 7 years of bad luck, the rabbit's foot is good luck. All this, read all the history about all this. Nothing but corruption, but kufr. Greek beliefs, etc. that we find. And as I began with the faith, our faith is based upon authenticity. Upon pristine beliefs is what the Muslim develops in his life and upon. Likewise, you find finders. You want to find property, you find something, then you find these people who find something for you. That's nothing but the jinn. Can go and find something instantly. Likewise, when you come to people reading the crystal ball, it's all just a pretend thing. Or moving cards, or the lights begin to move. This is what's known in the world, or was having contact with your qareen. All of us, we have a qareen, a jinn with us. And sometimes the qareen doesn't die. So the person could die and the qareen stays alive. So if, may Allah forbid, I have control over my qareen and somebody here inside this room and they're sitting here, my qareen will go to that individual and extract the information about them. If at any stage you find a person says to you something that you know that you was all along when it happened inside your life, you're sitting in your bedroom, you looked at something, you started laughing. And the person says that remember such and such day you've done this action. That person has now entered into the world of black magic. Because that individual has now contacted their qareen to find out information about you. Knows everything about you because they're always with you. And that's how they're able to tell information about what's taking place inside your life. So once again, many of us, we fall into the trap. This person is able to help us. And that's whoever visits a soothsayer, whoever just goes there, being inquisitive, what will happen to me, that person has disbelieved in that which has been sent down to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Another wording we find, that person's prayers will not be accepted for 40 days. That doesn't mean you stop praying now, because now you can become a disbeliever. It means you pray for 40 days, there's no reward. So you find these palms placed outside. In many of our Muslim countries, the palms, they come inside, we read your future, we do this. All of this will prevent you from having your prayers accepted for 40 days. And these individuals, likewise the Ouija board, clairvoyance, whatever it may be, the real individuals will always have the use of the jinn to help them. The jinn will come and provide that information to them. But the strange thing that I always ask, that if these individuals have the answer to everything, why don't they have the answer to global politics? Well, obviously they don't deal in politics, do they? So obviously they can't give answers to what the world is suffering through. Likewise, find some of them pretend to be pious individuals, supernatural individuals. We find it many times. Individuals that we met, that my sheikh has got control of the jinn, he's got spiritual powers, whatever it may be. Well, simple lessons we mentioned. No matter how pious you are, firstly, the pious individual doesn't disclose the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them. So there's nothing to prove. Real pious individuals, like Ibn Taymiyyah mentions, كُلُّ مُتَّقِي فَهُوَ وَلِي. Any person who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a wali. There's no set codes and rules and regulations that you become a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every person who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sticks to the halal, avoids the haram, automatically comes close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they try to paint a picture that certain saints or certain sheikhs have developed that knowledge and are able to work with the jinn or to access this knowledge, etc. Thus we find books known as Ilm al-Hikmah, Ruhaniyat, Spiritual Affairs, Shamsul Ma'arif al-Kubra of Ahmad al-Buni, died in the year 1225. Famous books have been written about these pious individuals who talk about the supernatural affairs that exist around them. The prophets have been given what's known as mu'jizat, given miracles which go against the normal practice, which is a blessing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon these individuals. And it's not the mu'jizat that counts, it's the message that counts. What the prophets, what they came with. Those mu'jizat are only there for a set time. That's the greatest miracle, still remains with us, is the Quran. That is the greatest miracle. The Quran is the greatest standing miracle upon the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That a person should use that, they need to help, they need themselves. And that's you find that going back to Musa ﷺ, when those magicians, when they saw what Musa ﷺ had done, فَأُلْقِيَ السَّحَرَةُ سُجَّدًا, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa ﷺ to throw down his staff, throw down his stick, and you find that his staff, and he swallowed up whatever they presented in front of the people, that we find, that's what some of the ulama go, that when Fir'aun said, or the magician said, let us meet at the time of duha, the time, and the sun is just about to rise, etc., just before duha time, because that is a time where the rays are slightly powerful, and they said that creates a mist. So that's when they threw their sticks and their ropes, يُخَيِّلُ إِلَيْهِمْ أَنَّهَا تَسْعَى. It made them look like the ropes and the sticks are moving. So it could be the heat of the sun creates that effect on the sand or whatever it may be, that made the people visualize that as if everything is moving around them. So that's when Musa ﷺ is told to throw, and when his staff turns into a serpent and it gobbles up everything around them. What happened to the magicians? The magicians fell down in a state of prostration and recognized that this is not sorcery, this is not magic, this is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can see from extreme kufr how they become extreme believers. From there also we find that they want to attribute sorcery or magic to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أنه ساحر أو كاهن, he was a magician or he's a soothsayer. ولا بقول كاهن قليلا ما تذكرون. It's not statements of a soothsayer. Very little is it that you ponder and you reflect that which the Prophet Muhammad came with. They say that speech is a form of magic. إن من البيان لسحرا. Verily, some people, in the way they use their speech, it can embezzle, it can dazzle people, and it can entrap people. So we find sometimes people are speaking whatever, people go into a trance. That's why many individuals at the moment even speaking about Islam. So some of the things that they're teaching people is taking people into the world of sorcery. That's what they do. Because from speech, there's a form of sorcery, of overcoming the people and then indoctrinating people with corrupt beliefs. So the Prophet was given no trickery in speech, no deceptive nature. He was given what's known as jawami al-kalim, concise words, clear words, al-fasaha, al-balagha. Pure speech is what the Prophet Muhammad presented to his people, and that is likewise what a Muslim should present to his people, pure speech and pure belief to the people around them. So we find that one should not fall into temptations of speech and curiosity, al-kahana, that we find al-arrafa, qira'atul yad, the reading of the hand, soothsayers, al-finjan, looking at the cups, ilmul nujum, in the study of the stars in the incorrect manner as we mentioned. All of this, Ouija board, of speaking to the dead, is all the world of black magic, the world of the jinn. That's the Quran. It mentions towards the end of Surah Al-Shu'ara, the 26th chapter of the Quran, هَلْ أُنَبِّكُمْ عَلَى مَنْ تَنَزَّلُ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Should we not narrate to you, mention to you, who do the devils come down upon? The devils come down upon تَنَزَّلُ عَلَى كُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ, come down upon every rebellious individual. يُلْقُونَ السَّمْعَ وَأَكْثَرُهُمْ كَاذِبُونَ. Those individuals who pay attention to them, the devils come down to them, and most of them are liars. That's that ilmul ghayb that they claim to have, the knowledge of the unseen. They hear it from the discussion of the angels, and they add to it 100 lies, and then they bring it down to the earth. Human nature is what? When you listen to someone, a person says something, and that one thing happens to you in your life because they mentioned that one thing, you forget about the rest of the 9,900 things they talked about. That's the only one thing that sticks in your mind. So you begin to believe that this person is predicting the future. This person, if they're predicting the future, then please tell us about the stock market at the moment so we know where to invest our money. Why don't they do that? Why don't they predict that this such and such currency is going to collapse or this is going to take place? Because they don't have any knowledge of the unseen. They have no knowledge of the unseen. It's just a fallacy that these people possess, or the jinn possesses the knowledge of the unseen. That's why, likewise, we go back to Sulaiman alayhi salam. The end of Sulaiman alayhi salam is that the jinn did not know. The jinn did not know that Sulaiman alayhi salam has died. He died for many years. He was sitting there, if I'm not mistaken, Surah Sabah, the 34th chapter of the Quran. He was sitting there watching them, working for him. And they kept on looking up thinking, Sulaiman, he doesn't get tired. He doesn't rest. He's continuously watching us. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had caused Sulaiman alayhi salam to die whilst his eyes were open. It was not until the dabbatul ard, the what you call a woodworm or wood lice that eats wood, was chewing away at his staff, and eventually the staff collapsed, and Sulaiman alayhi salam, resting in his hand, he dropped on the floor. And the jinn then said, if we had known the unseen, we would never ever remained here for an extra second. Because all this time we thought Sulaiman alayhi salam is what? Is alive and watching us. So the jinn had no knowledge of the unseen, what will take place for tomorrow. So man ata kahinan aw sahiran fasaddaqahu bima yaqul faqad kafara bima unzila ala Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whoever comes to a soothsayer or a magician and believes in what that person has made, the statements they made, has disbelieved in that which has been sent down upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And likewise we mentioned that person's prayers will not be accepted for 40 days. Likewise we find that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was affected by magic. So any one of us can be affected by magic. Somebody shouldn't think that they are above that. There's no way they're ever going to be affected by magic. But naturally there's going to be different degrees of the effect of magic. A person who lives in a filthy state, who doesn't pray, who doesn't fast, doesn't read any Quran, the chance of that person being possessed is far more. Person doesn't care where they urinate. Urinating underneath a tree is a common form of possession. People don't care where they urinate, and the jinn enters them because why? You just urinated over the jinn. Throwing hot water just out of your window, it doesn't happen now at the moment. It happens at Alum Rock. But years ago. So throwing hot water out, it hit the jinn becomes angry. Just like today, if you pick a brawl with someone, some people say, look, I'll come back for you. Sometimes you think it's just empty words. But some of them do what? What do? They come back for you. And likewise the jinn. You pick a brawl with the jinn will say, okay, I'll come back for you. That's why even the word of ruqya, when you begin to extract the jinn, and you begin to take out the jinn, many of them will threaten the raqi. They'll say, I'm going to come back for you. Many's happened. Their house has been burnt, they've been attacked, whatever, inside their home, their children, their life, physically. So just like outside you find enemies, the deeper enemies are the jinn, that they will come back. They have some physical strength which is far more than us. But their physical strength isn't something that we cannot believe. Maximum 4, 5, strength of 5 men, etc. Maximum. So you can still hold the jinn down. Likewise, signs of possession that you find a person begins to speak in strange languages. A person starts speaking language that no one understands, speaks in a foreign language. A person has mood swings, a person stays inside the toilet, a person seeing evil nightmares, dogs chasing them, scorpions biting them, them being slaughtered, being killed, etc. These are all signs of magic and sorcery being done upon the person. Sometimes it could be the jinn falls in love with the person. The person undressed himself on the beach or whatever, maybe the jinn visualizes them, falls in love and comes into their body, doesn't want to leave until they marry them, etc. This all happens. So a person is vigilant. That's what people don't care about Islam, don't care about this or deny the existence of the jinn. That's why most of these people, they classify it as the person has become senile. That's why most of them place them inside mental institutes, sorry to excuse expression. And what do? If you ever visit a mental institute, alhamdulillah, I had the pleasure to visit it, but in a good stable mind, that you find that most of these people have been possessed by the jinn. And all that they do, they continuously begin to inject them with drugs. And the dosage of the millimeters of those drugs is very, very strong. It makes them become like a cabbage. So it destroys their mind and their faculties, and the jinn may just leave the person. Once a jinn leaves the person is dead. Physically is dead, brain dead. So the jinn has gained its objective, or whoever sent that jinn has gained the objective. Sometimes a person can be possessed by 3, 4 jinns. Sometimes you find, just like the mafia industry, the real jinn doesn't come there. The big daddy don't come. He sends his boys. He sends his boys to go and infiltrate. So when you take out the jinn will say, I'm not the one, it's so-and-so. He's the one that's sending us. So why are you doing it? We're only doing it because he's forcing us. Just like today, you find on road that they're telling us to do these actions. So the real jinn just stays away, sends the boys to get on with the action. This is reality as well. So one way that a person needs to learn their faith, learn the Islam, and it makes it far less, that the chance of the person being possessed. But a person still can be harmed. But the effect of that harm will not be so powerful. That's you find, you read the tafsir of Mu'awwidhatayn, Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas. You find Labid ibn A'sam was a person who done magic upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He took a date seed and he wrapped it up in a special format, and he dropped it inside a well or a certain location. And so he took the hair and the comb of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and placed it inside inside a shell. So this is normally, whenever they do magic, to preserve the magic, they will wrap it, it will be covered. Because once it breaks, then the magic, whatever it may be, it will open up and it will have no impact. So they try to preserve it by covering it with something, making it strong. And that's sometimes they'll place it in strange places. That's why some of them will reveal where the jinn, where the magic is, or the jinn will come and say, the magic is such and such location, you go there, you take it. That's why if you find the magic, inshallah, it will remove instantly. It will remove, the magic instantly and remove the jinn instantly, if you can find it. But if you don't, you carry on reading the Quran, and that will begin to weaken the impact. So this person done magic upon the Prophet, he began to have a slight forgetfulness, or whether he had to purify himself, perform ghusl, etc., is something that came into his thought. But as for the daily actions, the Prophet did not impact the Prophet Muhammad. So these two surahs were sent down. Some mentioned that Ali was the one, those hadith, some ulama mentioned weak in nature, he's the one that opened up the spell. But the truth is there that these two surahs were sent down to help us to protect ourselves from black magic and sorcery. That's the inside they mentioned, وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, to protect us from the sorcerers, the female sorcerers, who blow fil uqad, who blow into the knots. So that's why they make these spells, they make the knots, they blow into them and they tighten them, it becomes something tight to harm the individual. And likewise the word aqidah is taken from aqad, taken from a knot. So likewise they have that strong conviction. So likewise the iman of a mu'min, a believer, the more they know their aqidah, the less they worry about this. There's nothing that these individuals can do to harm the believer. Likewise, find that the whole of the Quran is a shifa'un lima fi sudur, is a cure for the hearts. The whole of the Quran is a cure for the individual. Likewise, you find azkar in the morning, in the evening, and other ayat, kursi, etc. that we mentioned, all ways for the Muslim to preserve and to protect themselves. You don't need to have a ghostbuster, you don't need somebody special to come to your house and read this and read that. All of us, I'm sure, can read Surah Al-Ikhlas, read Surah Al-Falaq, read Surah Al-Nas, read Surah Al-Fatiha, learn Ayat Al-Kursi, read it upon your children, read it upon yourself. It's all ways of protecting ourselves. وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. There's no harm that they can do except for by the permission and leave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Quran mentioned, مَا أَصَابَ مِن مُصِيبَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَن نَبْرَأَهَا إِنَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. No calamity befalls upon you, neither before or afterwards, except for it's been documented with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the belief of a mu'min, a believer. There's no harm that can befall me except for that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for me. So real believer, they fall in being harmed, they do what? فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ. Run to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't run to the graves, the shrines, the peers, the faqirs, this, that and the other. Run to Allah. And most Muslims don't want to do that. Most Muslims don't want to pray 5 times a day. They'll blow £10,000 to find an instant cure. Because remember, when you're in a state of sickness, you'll do anything. But to say to the person, come for Salatul Fajr, make dhikr after Fajr, pray your daily prayers, stay away from haram, stick to the halal, perform hajj, perform umrah. Most people don't want to do that. Most of our people don't want to do that because that is the hard path. We just want a quick fix to come out of this. And as I mentioned, there is no quick fix. There's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see which of us is going to be successful. And as we mentioned, that we have to begin to strengthen our iman. Learn what is the creed of a Muslim, learn the benefits of Islam, and none of this will inshallah harm the individual. If it does take place when an individual person has equipped themselves to protect themselves. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq and ability to understand the true pristine teaching of Islam, to stay away from people who may dibble and dabble inside the shirk and this kufr and this disbelief, to protect our families, to warn our family members that this is a fine thread between iman and kufr, that the person who practices actions and the evil practices we have inside a community, trying to possess people, trying to send magic upon people, trying to harm people, is all dangerous. That a person who continuously practices that, we're not labeling any individual specifically a disbeliever, but according to Sharia, whoever practices magic, etc., is classified as a disbeliever. So these people who do it, we shouldn't be worried. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with these people inside this dunya and even more so inside the akhirah. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولجميع المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. بارك الله فيكم. question. Sometimes we get these text messages that if you have to send this message to 10 people, and if you do, nothing bad will happen. If you don't, then this will bad will happen. You're obviously living in a modern world now. Before, you used to be pieces of paper, photocopy them and send them to people. If you can't go to Ajmer Sharif, then just send us a £50 check, and the tabarruk, the dust will come to your house. And if you do come, we've got a hotel and ready and waiting for you. So this is the modern world now. They use American Express, websites, whatever it may be, all exists. There's a modern form of sending text messages that please send this to 10 people. This is all batil, this is all false. There's no essence, there's no ahadith about you have to send this to 10 people, and you'll have good luck to you. If you don't, you'll have bad luck given to you. We should stay away from sending these texts and advise these people, please don't send us any of these texts and don't believe in these texts, inshallah. Likewise, when people say this name of Allah 1,000 times, if you're looking for something, you'll find it, etc. All those ahadith and mawdu'at, all fabricated ahadith. All those ahadith, we mention specifically certain supplications, we do them. So as for finding to get these books and to say certain things and say this will bring my risk, just to say ar-raziq, 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 and think that risk is going to come to you, this is all against the sunnah or the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, brother. Can children get possessed by the jinn? That's the question, yeah? Yeah, that's true. Children can get possessed by the jinn, unfortunately, because some of them are young, they don't know. So that's why we have younger brothers and sisters and children. We should read the du'as in the morning, in the evening upon them, and read Ayatul Kursi when they're going to sleep. Likewise, when they're sleeping, sometimes we don't pay attention to the clothing. We have pictures on the clothing, pictures on the bed, pictures around. That could be something that scares them at night. Or sometimes a child could be just had a fizzy drink. Oh, a shaitan's inside him. There's no shaitan inside him. He just had a fizzy drink. You didn't understand, So obviously, child begins to play up. Or they're really tired and they begin to play up. Those of your children will understand this, but how people begin to think, the devil's gone into him. Or likewise, the wife or sister's not behaving too well. Oh, she's possessed. She could be going through a menstrual cycle. She could be just given childbirth. She could have just had a difficult time. So the mind of a woman is different from a man. Straight away in our society, she's possessed. Quickly bring her to get ruqyah done upon her. And some sisters have been killed. Then a person's beating the jinn out. There's no jinn inside there. Come out, you evil jinn. Come out, you evil jinn. And killed her. It's happened. So not every time you see something, a person could just have a mood swing, just could be upset, lost their job, something's happened. Don't conclude, just because he mentioned it, that person's possessed. They got a jinn inside them. Let's go sort that, let's go do some ghost busting. So the reality is we have to be very, very careful to assume that everyone is possessed, inshallah, but it can happen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all of us, inshallah.
What's the best way to get rid of the ta'weez?
Get rid of ta'weez is to, when you find it, inshallah, to burn it, take it and just burn it, finish, or bury it inside the sand, get rid of it. Like I said, many of these ta'weez that we wear, they're incorrect, they contain elements of shirk inside there. We should just, get rid of them, etc. We shouldn't, wear them, inshallah. And as I said, it contains the Quran, but like I said, alhamdulillah, I'm quite confident most times you open up, you will not find the Quran, inside there, inshallah. Wallahu a'lam.
How much evidence is there in Rafadain in the mosque?
Sheikh, the evidence here is about jinn, about shaitan and black magic. You understand? The topic is going to be Raful Yadain. You understand? We can, if you want me to answer, Raful Yadain is a sunnah that's been established, and that we find a hadith inside Bukhari. Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray if you see me praying. But if a person doesn't do Raful Yadain, فَصَلَاتُهُ صَحِيحًا. His prayer is acceptable. Just like we blame, they say to us, you don't wear a topi, your salah is invalid, and we say you don't do Raful Yadain, your prayer is invalid. That's not true. These are elements of sunnah which are beautiful, as Imam Shafi'i says, it beautifies the prayer, something good. But a person doesn't do it, doesn't mean they're not following sunnah. So we have to be tolerant. Doesn't mean that I'm making excuse for them. The better approach is to do Raful Yadain inside that salah. It's been established from some 60, 70 different companions narrating it. The hadith is mutawatir that we find in Ma'na and Lafdan as well, inside Bukhari and Muslim. But for argument's sake, a person doesn't do it. What have the fuqaha mentioned? Is their prayer complete? Yes, their prayer is complete. They're losing out some reward. That's as far as it goes. As for our slogan, our da'wah has become what? What is our da'wah? Whoever does Raful Yadain, وَتَعْمِينَ خَلْفَ الْإِمَامِ. That's it, simple. When I first landed in the blessed country of Pakistan, may Allah bless her, I landed there, people coming up to me, so I was praying, mashallah, you Ahlul Hadith, you are this, anta Salafi, kada, kada, this and the other. Looked at them, who are you? Because why you done Raful Yadain? So Raful Yadain shows I'm Ahlul Hadith. Go back and read the history of Ahlul Hadith. Even the ulama of Deoband, they mention Ahlul Hadith were Ahlul Hadith. They were classical ulama who lived by the Hadith, who wrote about Hadith, classical works about Hadith to this day. have been written inside India by ulama who Ahlul Hadith. We've only become symbols. Go to our masjid inside our country, what do you find? All the evidence of Raful Yadain, all the evidence of Ameen behind the Imam. That's all our da'wah is, restricted to these points. That's what our life has become, restricted to these points. No, on how you move your finger, no. There's far more aspects of our da'wah we need to revitalize once again, and this is the essence of our da'wah. Don't you have people, Ahlul Hadith now, going to these sorcerers, going to these fraudsters, going to these magicians, our own family members, their aqeedah become weak, they don't know what their belief is anymore. So real essence is strengthen our aqeedah, strengthen our belief, and present this da'wah at a later stage, inshallah. People will, inshallah, accept it automatically. Barakallahu fi guide, akhi.
In our community, most of our people, they use this style.
That's right.
When you talk about us, I used to do it as
Yeah,
well.
inshallah.
But when I started practicing the deen, I just put everything in the bin.
That's right.
When you're talking to them in the public or the community as where we from, they believe in it. They always say it's from the Quran because they put it on their waist. That's what they say. Because they say because we cannot read the Quran to make ruqyah on their kids or
That's right.
themselves. They just put it on. Like if you write Ayatul Kursi and then put it on the waist.
Like I said, if it's purely the Quran, some people have allowed it, you understand?
But they don't know if it's
If they don't know, then
Jinns' name in there. Or
that's it, then he has to get rid of it. If you can clearly see the Quran, you open it up and you can clearly see the Quran. Some people say, oh, it said the name of Allah, but before it, it could say something in the Persian language, it could say the name of the devil, they could say Allah, then it could say something else. So something like get rid of it. But if you open it, it says clearly, for example, Ayatul Kursi, or the person writes it in front of you and ties it up and gives it to you.
So they made it and sent it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a good business at the moment. You understand? Delivery, ta'weez is delivered to you, etc. It's all, good. Alhamdulillah, good industry to get involved in at the moment. Whatever you want, So, like I said, we stay away from it. Go ahead, Akhi. The jinn.
Is the sin for the jinn when it goes in the body?
Hey.
Like, the man is bullying someone, then the jinn goes in so that it stops.
It is sinful. The jinn is not allowed, needs to be advised. It's haram for the jinn to enter the body of an individual, even if it's a good thing. Even if the jinn becomes a Muslim, the jinn needs to be told to leave the body. Do you understand? If it wants to help, it can help and then go. That's it, finish. No one can try to control the jinn. Because the evil jinn, like I said, they want us to commit kufr. They want us to go towards that path of disbelief. So they don't need us doing these filthy actions I mentioned. The only reason why they want us to do these filthy actions is to show how low we are. Because the essence of the jinn, they have a psychological complex. Do you understand? They're not intelligent as human beings. If you study the history of the jinn, they're not as intelligent human beings. So they, just like you find, what do you call those individual blockheads? Do you understand? Well, it might get attacked by the jinn. Do you understand? So because of that, they don't think sensibly. They don't think. They just does it, go and do something irrationally. So same thing, they may possess the person. So the person does ruqyah, tells the jinn to leave. Or the person takes a shahada, and even if they become Muslim, they have to leave. They say, where should we go? Say, go Mecca, go Medina, go Iraq, go Baghdad. Go wherever you want to go, they can go. But they should not remain in the body of any individual. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, akhi.
Sometimes people say speeches include magic.
That's right.
Is there something like this?
That speech includes magic. Yeah, you find here, ulama mentioned sometimes a person, the way that they offer their speech, inside their speech they begin to mesmerize the people. So sometimes you find the ulama of hadith that mention that a person may say, the Prophet Muhammad said a hadith. From the hadith, they move into a story. Then they say the Prophet Muhammad said. Then from there they move into a story. So what they're actually doing, ulama of hadith have mentioned, they're actually mesmerizing the people. So a general person would think what? He is narrating what? A hadith. But when you approach him, he'll say to you, I never said it was hadith. I was narrating a story. But so they're trying to trap the people into believing that what they narrate is a hadith. This is a type of sorcery. You listen to many individuals, I don't want to mention the name, enough trouble it is at the moment. There are certain individuals who narrate certain things, and you mention that they never narrate the hadith. They narrate a story. Then they come back to the Prophet said this, and then go back to the story. So the average person walks out thinking that this is something that the Prophet said in his life, and he never said that. So you find that exists. That's one type of sorcery that we find, the meaning of inna min al-bayani la sihra, able to mesmerize people. Likewise, finding words. I know people able to convince a person, carry on, saying something until eventually what happens? Person is convinced, aren't they? Wallahu alam. Go ahead, akhi, at the back there.
I've heard that there's good jinns who live within the house of the Muslims.
Yani that's possible. Like I said, good jinn can be there, but at the end of the day, they have the jinn in general have their own places they live. They live in derelict homes, haunted homes. That's why a lot of these movies based upon haunted homes, etc. It's true. They live in stable pens. They live in a lavatory. Live in dirty, filthy places. Likewise, the food that they eat is the dung of animals and the bones that we throw behind. So the nature of the jinn is different from us. So if they're living in your home, don't know what they're doing, it must be a damn good home, mashallah, yeah? They moved in, or it must be a bad home, do you understand? So tell them, please go and live in your real home, don't stay inside our home. Even if it happens to be unique jinn. His name's not Casper, is it? Faddal akhi, go ahead. My views upon Ajmer Sharif, places like Ajmer Sharif, Brother Baghdad Sharif, Lahore Data Darbar, these are all individuals who were saints at one time of their life. But the problem is that many of our people are going there. I've seen what people do. They go in there, ask the dead person. People say, no, they don't ask. A person will go there, who doesn't have a child, say, give me a child, help me, you understand? That's what we're against. We don't have anything against Ajmer, Baba, or Data Darbar, etc., whatever it may be. They were good people. They were pious individuals. It's what the people have come and done at their shrines, is what we're against. You don't need to come to a shrine to ask for help and for protection. So we're not against those individuals. That's what people try to portray. Oh, they don't respect them, they don't love them, they know they were pious individuals, they were good individuals. We're not saying that. We're not asking the question. The question here is, what do people go there? I've lived in Pakistan for many years of my life. Do you understand? And I know what takes place at these graves. So no one can fool me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I've seen it with my own eyes. If you want to have a good time, you want to have a good rave, you want to smoke free weed, marijuana, and dance and enjoy yourself, come to the graves. If I'm wrong, tell me, correct me. You say, tell me that I'm wrong. That doesn't take place at shrines. So these shrines of these pious individuals, why are you allowing these haram actions to take place? Why? If they're pious men, respect their piety. But you find all types of haram and munkar takes place there, and people think that this is a good way to go. And it's a mafia industry. If I stay in that country, I'm already a marked man in this country, yeah? If I stay there, I'll be a dead man by now. That's the reality, I'll be a dead man. Because you speak out against them, they'll take you out. That's the reality, it's a mafia industry. Our message we began with is a simple message. We have no hidden agenda, nothing to hide about. Most of these bees, whatever it may be, I've moved about with them and know them, what they're involved in. It's all just a great big front. Real bees, real people close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala don't go around doing these actions. Do you understand? They don't allow people to start kissing their hands, kissing their feet, women touching them, people throwing flowers at them, throwing money at them, giving them their property, giving them land, giving them this. And then they have the audacity to say, you know what? I'll give you a place in paradise, son. Do you understand? Sit with them. Sit with them. If you come into their gathering, you don't stand up in front of them. Why didn't you stand up in front of me? Why didn't you stand up in front of me? They get angry. And we know according to the hadith, the person wants you to stand up in front of them, never stand up in front of them. Don't bow your back down to any man. Not even to your mother, your father, to any sheikh. Don't bend your back down to any man. Your back only bends down to who? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we come in front of them, what do? We grab them like this, don't we? Why we grab them like this? The real sheikh will slap you in your face and say, stand up. Meet me like a man. Don't meet me like a beggar. Isn't it? Why are you meeting the person in that manner? They can help you. They allow people to dance in front of them. What's that about then? Oh, the Prophet allowed certain people to dance in front of him when he came to Medina. In that manner, he allowed people to dance and then touch your feet. Oh, you don't really understand. Do you understand? They're trying to mesmerize our people. Some people are illiterate. They're weak in their faith. They think, these people will help us, so we come to them. But just like we've come to these countries, we learn certain things. We need to recognize the corruption of our beliefs and try to correct our beliefs. We're not trying to have a go at Ajmer Sharif or whatever it may be. We respect these places, and that's as far as it goes. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, akhi.
Brother, what are the verses of the Quran that you can use for ruqyah? Can you listen to pre-recorded material such as on YouTube or something like that? How often should you say ruqyah during the day? and also forgot the last one.
Inshallah. Ruqya, we mentioned once again Surah Al-Fatiha, Ayat Al-Kursi, verse 255 of Surah Al-Baqarah, the final two ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, certain ayat that you find inside Surah Yunus, inside Surah Qasas that we find, likewise Surah Al-Jinn, that we find Al-Mu'awwidhatayn, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, Surah Al-Ikhlas, etc. So these are the main ayat that you find. There's other ayat that different ulama would read depending on the experience of life. So the more that they read, there's no concrete proof that this ayah will take out the jinn. So according to their expertise and the years of reading the Quran, they may come across certain ayat that they may say them and the jinn will get frustrated or come out, etc. So ruqya needs to be done on a regular basis. Like I said, it's like medicine. The more it will begin to weaken the jinn until eventually the jinn may speak and say, this is the reason why I've come here, this is what I'm doing. Then the person will warn the jinn that it's haram for you to enter the body, you to leave the body, give us a sign. Sometimes they hide, they begin to cry. Sometimes you need to ask them, give us a sign you're leaving. So the person may say, leave through the right leg begins to shine. They might say, right, turn off all the lights. Turn off the lights, by the way. And the jinn is gone. So they give certain signs that they've gone.
Can you listen to pre-recorded?
You can, if there's no choice, you can play Surah Al-Baqarah. A house which has no recitation, Surah Al-Baqarah is like a graveyard. So the best thing is to recite it. But if you can't recite it, you're learning it, just play it on a tape. Inshallah, there's something better than nothing.
If all of that else fails, do you know any reputable sheikhs that can possibly help?
Inshallah, when we speak to Brother after, we tell you some numbers, some people to go and see, inshallah. Wallahu a'lam, inshallah. Go ahead, brother.
Basically, there are some people that talk to themselves. So, are they talking to the jinns?
Yeah, I talk to myself. So it depends, akhi. Sometimes you have a, as they say, if you study child psychology, they have a pretend friend, isn't it? That they're talking to them. No harm in that. But if they actually, you think that they're, going into that dimension, that could be something that could be speaking to the jinn, etc. So we need to be, look into it in detail, inshallah. Somebody else had a question? Go ahead, brother.
In the community where I come from, you have people who write these dawahs for people. In most cases, they are the imam of the local area. Are you allowed to pray behind these people if they write dawahs for people?
Like I said, brother, if the person writes ta'weed that doesn't contain the Quran and you advise the person and they're writing other than the Quran, then don't pray behind them. But they say to you, I'm writing the Quran and giving it, then maybe we can allow you to pray behind them. But if you watch them and you see that they're writing something you don't understand what they're writing, then just stay away from them. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, akhi. The uncle got? Yeah. It seems to be general
belief, particularly among Muslims who are scientists, that jinn are not really viruses.
That's right. That's right. Okay, we find that some people, the whole essence of the jinn, you find that some of them begin to write Muhammad Abdu and other individuals and write that the jinn don't really exist, they're microbes, they're germs, etc. And this is incorrect belief that we find that goes against the creed of Ahlul Sunnah. We find numerous ayat inside the Quran that the jinn has been created from jinn, from the smokeless fire. The Quran mentions, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the jinn and the human beings to worship me. So microbes and germs, etc. is not classified as the jinn. Likewise, the hadith inside Sahih Muslim that the angels, خُلِقَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مِن نُور, angels have been created from light, the jinn has been created from smokeless fire. وَخُلِقَ آدَمْ مِمَّا وُصِفَ لَكُمْ, and Adam is created from that which has been described to you. That's the essence of the jinn. The jinns also procreate. They also have children. So their essence has been changed. Just like the essence of a human being, we are no longer from turab, from the earth. We're from semen. Likewise, the jinn, they procreate in their own manner. The evidence for this is that when the Prophet strangled that jinn, the wetness of the saliva of the jinn touched the hand of the Prophet Muhammad. So if the jinn was smokeless fire, so how can there be wetness coming out of fire? So this is a proof that ulama mentioned the jinn, their form has changed. The essence was smokeless fire, but it's no longer smokeless fire. But they have the ability to possess, come into the human body, come into animals, fly in the sky, go through walls, whatever it may be. As something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them this ability to do. But we shouldn't be worried because in general the jinn live in their own world. They live in their own world. They're not interested in what we're doing in our lives. Okay, it's only when we begin to harm them or something that then it begins to take place. They don't care less about us. But because we travel into their side of the world, then they begin to try to harm us. So this belief that they're microbes, or doctors, scientists say it's schizophrenia, a person going through split personality, they're not possessed by a jinn. Because remember, science is based upon you have to believe in what you visualize. Whereas Islamically, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Islamically, we believe in the unseen. That's our journey. They don't believe in the unseen. Even though previously, as we mentioned, according to Christian sources, Jewish sources, they believe in the jinn. I mean, exorcism. What is exorcism about? According to Christianity, what's the difference between exorcism and ruqya? The difference is what? I take you out in the name of what? Of Christ. So that's why in exorcism, what does it begin with? The adhan, doesn't it? Quite strange, isn't it? Should have been kind of movie, should I? I don't know where some reading that I do just stays in the back of my mind. What did they do? It begins with the adhan. The person is taking out the jinn via what? The use of the cross. The use of shirk. So the jinn will leave via, as we mentioned, concluded via shirk. So that's nothing special what they're doing, because they're saying, I tell you to leave via the name of Christ. Whereas we are calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is, so they believed inside their sources, but obviously the modern world begins to reject the unseen world, etc. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, brother.
The jinn take the form of something else rather than being possess something else, but can they actually take the form of like an animal or a human being, not actually possess something?
In general, as far as I recall, they cannot take on, you can never see them in their real form. They will always come within a form. So they either come into an individual and then begin to speak via the individual, or come into the animal. So one individual is walking by and he kicked the cat. There was a jinn inside the cat. The jinn then possessed the individual who was just walking by and decided to kick the cat. The jinn possessed him. So in general, the golden rule is that we cannot see them, but they can see us.
So the angels can take the form of other beings.
That's right. Jinn can't now. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, akhi.
Just a clarification, you mentioned a couple of times that if the Tawheed contains Quran, that may be acceptable. Just to avoid confusion, why is that? And is there a precedence from the companions or the early generation on that?
Like I said, obviously it desires more research you're going to have. To be fair, as we mentioned, some ulama have allowed it to take just the Quran, but according to our teachers that we spend time with, they said the best is to do what? Stay away from it. But we're just being fair that some have mentioned it. Maybe just purely the Quran that they've mentioned. As the brother mentioned, a person can't read the Quran at all. And someone said you can keep the Quran with you because the Quran is a form of protection, a form of healing. So they use certain general ayat to prove their point. But I don't incline to that view personally, that you should wear the Quran. You should not wear the Quran at all, because the Quran mentions شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. The month of Ramadan is the month we send down the Quran, which is guidance for mankind. So we use the guidance to cure ourselves, to help ourselves, rather than just to strap it on our sleeves, etc. So I just mentioned to be fair, because there are many people who come back and say, as you mentioned, they will bring certain narrations, certain statements from the companions, they allowed the Quran. At this time, my memory doesn't serve me to narrate those narrations, what they may be. And so just to be fair, I mentioned that. But as I mentioned, the most strongest view that we incline towards is not to use write the Quran and place it at all. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, Akhir.
What's the correct way of finding out if someone has the black magic?
The best way at the end of the day, like I mentioned, the person may be going through certain illness, or they may feel any sick, they're beginning to lose their memory, any strange things are happening to them. So the person can come to an individual who's skillful in reading the Quran, recitation of the Quran. They'll be able to read certain ayat and able to discover. They might tell a person to eat something or drink zamzam, the person may vomit, etc. And then from there they can begin to discover the person has been affected by magic. But like I said, at any stage, those people involved in being practitioners, they will never do anything which is hidden. So the real person, will always speak openly and deal openly. If any time it becomes something weird or strange, you need to just get up and leave. Even people may tell you, that definitely they'll remove the magic or whatever it may be. Anything which is hidden and you cannot see in front of you, just get up and walk away is the safest thing to do. Wallahu a'lam. Go ahead, brother.
Is it possible for a female jinn to marry a human man?
It's not allowed. It's not allowed for a female jinn to marry a man. If it's happened, it's against the Sharia. So if that female jinn has possessed the man, and some people conducted the marriage or allowed it to take place, it's against the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that to take place. So that person needs to be advised that they should not conduct this type of marriage or be involved in this type of relationship. The female jinn needs to be told to leave. And that's why you read the history of the monks and the nuns, that when they began to live in this rahbaniya, this monasticism, staying away from the natural sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the monks began to have dreams of demons that they call incubi, that were female demons that came to them, so they began to have wet dreams, etc. They blamed it that jinn was having a relationship with them. And the nuns began to have dreams of sukubi, who were the male jinns that came and possessed them. So because obviously you're going against the natural norm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that marriage is something which is allowed. So marriage to the jinn is not allowed. They marry amongst themselves, etc. And that's why you should be vigilant, that even while you find being intimate with one's family, to read the dua. Because if a person doesn't read the dua, then the jinn will be participating. And that's when people say, shaitan the bacha, isn't it? Because why? Because sometimes people have not read the dua of intimacy. That's affecting the child. So look at Sharia in great detail, all the right down to the final dot is telling us how we should conduct and behave ourselves and to protect ourselves from the jinn, etc. Likewise, the jinn, if you don't say Bismillah entering the home, then the jinn will come inside. And then if you don't say Bismillah eating your food, he says, today I've got a home and I've got some food as well. But if you say Bismillah, there's no food for him and there's no home for him. So when you go home, make sure you mention the name of Allah into the home, and he has to sleep and eat outside. Go ahead, Akhi.
You mentioned earlier in the talk about you see scorpions and other things in dreams. Are there any specific dreams that you might see if you're possessed?
Like I said, brother, it moves from one person. You have to go to a practitioner. If in general, if you just have a one-off nightmare, don't say that's it. Do you understand? We're talking about continuously every night. You're sweating, you're seeing scorpions, you're seeing snakes, you're seeing evil pictures, images, people stabbing into you, trying to harm you on a regular basis. Not once in a while. We all have nightmares. Do you understand? It happens on a regular basis, 4 or 5 times a week. It's happening to you. Then that's signs in general. There could be magic or the attack of the jinn taking place upon the individual. A person can't sleep at all at night, etc. Like I said, the modern world does give you what? Sleeping tablets, isn't it? Have a higher dosage, knock you out, put you to sleep. So that destroys your mental stability, etc. But Islamically, we look at all these signs. Like I mentioned, a person is spending a long time inside the toilet. Person is weeping for no reason. Person is feeling depressed. Person's eyes are rolling. Likewise, certain actions upon their facial expressions that begin to take place. We want to stay away from the Quran, stay away from the masjid. All these are in general signs that we can begin to recognize there could be some harm done upon the person. Wallahu a'lam. Right, Akhi?
Last question.
Yeah, inshallah. You don't want me to carry on, Akhi? I'm going to lock up and go, inshallah. Inshallah. We take 1 or 2 more questions, inshallah. Go ahead, Akhi.
What's the Islamic view on sleep paralysis? Where you have this effect where you're sleeping and you feel something's holding you down and suffocating you.
Here we find this hole that you find that begins to take place. Some have said that could be the jinn trying to harm the individual. And that's why you find that, alhamdulillah, if you keep yourself moist, your tongue with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you find that sometimes in your sleep you might say La ilaha illallah and it breaks, doesn't it? You're trying to say something, whatever you don't say, but then that comes out and everything stops. So the clue to that is that if you keep yourself during the day remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the tawfiq and ability that even within your sleep, that when they begin to attack you, that you'll be able to break them. Likewise, Ayatul Kursi, it becomes that bubble around you, that shield to protect you from the jinn, etc. Like this, brother, brother.
You said about the ta'weez, when you start believing shirk. Someone know the ta'weez and he's believing it, but unknowingly though, they committed their shirk.
No, unknowingly finish, Akhi. Anybody who unknowingly does it, they're forgiven, inshallah. That's right. Obviously, we have to teach people. I'm not going around like today. People might think, he's saying everybody is a kafir and this, that. No. We have to go and teach people, that community, in a good way. This is not allowed. It's against the Sharia, etc. We're never here to conclude anybody is a disbeliever and anybody is a pakka believer and everybody is a pakka jahannami or pakka jannati. You know what I mean? That's not our role. That's not our role. None of us know where we're going. At the end of the day, our role is in alayka illa al-balagh, is to convey the message. That's it, simple. And once the message has been delivered, then we've done what we've done in our community. If people still want to believe in it, they're free. But at least we know we've taken the efforts to help our community to believe in the right things. One last question there, inshallah, then you could ask me outside. Do you want to, inshallah? Who hasn't asked a question yet, then give them opportunity, inshallah. Go ahead, Akhi, go ahead. You can ask a question. Go ahead.
This question has been answered.
Barakallah fiqh. Go ahead, brother. Brother's asked a question before. Aqsam to barakatuh.
One of the brothers' question, if I understood it correctly, he asked, can jinn enter through alcohol and other substances such as drugs and stuff like that?
Can they enter? Most times when our people are involved in alcohol and drugs, they say, oh, there must be some magic done on the person to get addicted to drugs and alcohol. That's rubbish. That's total rubbish. The person themselves got addicted to these drugs. Maybe the jinn may afterwards attack them, whatever. So most of our parents say, oh, unu jinn bag, yeah, that's why he's doing these haram things. No, the man's been out, dibbling and dabbling with drugs, got addicted to drugs, he's wrecked his life, he's wrecked his mind, because excessive smoking of weed and skunk creates schizophrenia, breaks your brain cells. Smoking of crack, cocaine, heroin damages your mind totally. You think you're Superman jumping off a building or whatever, maybe you're high. That's the reality. So turn around and say, oh, inu jinn bag, yeah, that's rubbish in my books. So these people got themselves addicted to these substances, so they need to wash themselves away from these substances. Once they're addicted, they could get possessed. That's totally something different. But so our parents like to say, oh, the jinn got him addicted to this. It's the wider community around us. That the tests and trials are there, and some people get involved with this, and they get addicted to these substances, it destroys their mind. That's what's happened to them. Right, brother?
In my community, we have a lot of so-called imams. A lot of people go to them, mostly at night, to tell them about their problems, and to ask them to do istikhara for them. So for these people, it doesn't matter how many people come to them, they will take all their problems. And in the morning, people will go back to them and they will tell them about the dream that they have for each one. They will tell them things to sacrifice, stuff to solve their problem. This is like, can you definitely conclude that they use jinn?
Yeah, they might be using jinn. How can you make, if 10, 15 people come make istikhara for 15 different people, have 15 different dreams in a night and give everybody a response in the morning? Doesn't really make sense, does it, in that sense, that they can have 15 different dreams and tell everybody what to do. So we in general should avoid, avoid such type of individuals and such practices that they have, inshallah. Yeah, go ahead, one more, that brother, this one, go ahead, brother mentioned istikhara, are we allowed to do istikhara? And brother mentioned how to get rid of taweez. Taweez, you said bury it or burn it. That's right. If he has verse of Quran, he can still burn it. Dave, even if it contains the Quran, you're allowed to burn it or bury it inside the sand. So even if it's the Quran, you use mixed match of two, you're allowed to burn it and then throw it in the ocean, etc. Or you're allowed to bury it inside the ground. It's allowed according to the Sharia for a person to do. Here you're not disrespecting the Quran, because for example, we have pages of the Quran that's ripped up. What should we do with them? So we have to get rid of them. That's allowed to do. Our intent is not to dismantle the Quran. As for, you mentioned before that, what did you say about them? You're perfectly allowed to do istikhara, but it's better the person does it themselves. You can ask one's parents, mother, father, elderly individual, a teacher, they respect to do it. But the better sunnah is the person does it themselves. Too many of us, we rely upon someone to do istikhara for me. Whatever you see in your dream must be for me. But the sunnah is a person does istikhara for themselves, and necessarily you don't have to have a dream to tell you what the answer is. It's not necessarily a dream. That many people believe it's going to be a dream. We'll take last question from the brother Mizan, inshallah.
Can one's aqidah have an impact on the effectiveness of ruqya and jinns attacking them as well?
Hey, so brother asking, can one's faith? Yes, it does. You have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that cures, is the one that heals, is the one that's allowed this to take place. So the creed of the Muslim, that's what you always have to remind about. The belief is very, very important. If the belief is a shallow belief, you know what will happen? Even when the jinn leaves, guess what? The jinn will come back again. So the system just carries on and carries on, because the prime element is that the belief has not been refined. So once a person begins to refine their belief, then it makes it easier. You need to remove the jinn, you need etc. I think we'll stop there, inshallah. I don't want to delay people anymore. Anybody ask me a question on my way out, they're more than welcome to ask me questions while I'm leaving.